That's a great question. How do you move away from somewhere that's as beautiful as this? But after 18 years and understanding how much upkeep and work there is on the place, it's time to start letting go and looking at other things. Not an easy decision, but there's only so much you can do. Around 19 years ago, I was living in Melbourne, and my wife said to me, she's originally from Queensland, that she felt it was time to move back to Queensland. I remember thinking, how can I leave Melbourne? It's been my home forever, and go to Queensland. And she told me of a place that had rock pools and waterfalls, and sounded impressive, but still hard for me to imagine. And maybe a month or so after that discussion, I found myself on a plane flying to Queensland, the Gold Coast, with Teresa. And we were met at the airport by an agent who said, I'm going to take you to what I think is the best valley in the world. I remember thinking, wow, that's a big call, best valley in the world. And he said, well, you know, there's other valleys in the world, but he said, how many valleys that are this beautiful, that are rainforests, that have freshwater rock pools, that have waterfalls, that have so much natural greenery, that's only 15 minutes from an international airport, or 10 minutes from some of the best surf beaches around. And so, of course, I listened to him and thought, yeah, you know, you're a real estate agent. And we jumped into his car, and maybe 10, 15 minutes later at the most, we're in the midst of this really tropical rainforest that's so far removed from the high rises of the Gold Coast and everything most people know about. And I had the opportunity of, on that day, of meeting a farmer that had been here for about 50 years, sitting by his old fireplace, who started sharing with me some of his yarns on his time at this land. And in talking to him, he wanted to know where I was from, and then started sharing a bit about himself. And whilst he was looking at selling his land, I could tell that it wasn't for him about selling his land, it was finding somebody that would be able to look after it and nurture it as he had for all of those years. And from that discussion, I became the custodian of Shantaram in Currumbin Valley. And this is where I am today. Jack the farmer had been here for over 50 years. This was his old house. I think today he'd be really proud of what's become of the place, and I think of him often. The soil over most of the property is volcanic soil that came from Mount Warning. It's really rich red. Mount Warning erupted a lot of years ago, and so much of the soil from there has come down into Currumbin Valley, which makes it one of the most nutrient-rich soils in this whole area. I remember when I first walked into it, Jack offered me a sandwich that was made out of, I think it was tin spam, and he called it cold cuts. And the house, well, the house wasn't what I was used to. The house had holes in the walls, it had holes in the roof. Jack sort of lived pretty much at one with nature. He befriended a lot of the critters that lived around the place. And so I looked at the house and I thought, well, you know, can I keep the house? I'm not sure. So it wasn't until I'd actually taken possession of the house and I moved up here. And I remember the day that the keys of the front door were given to me. And the keys weren't like a normal little key. It was like, you know, one of those big old keys that you'd put in a big door lock and you'd turn it and you'd open it. And the front door was a bifold door that Jack had made. So I walked into the house and I looked around and I found this old gun cupboard that he used to store his shotgun in. And I thought, oh, I wonder what's in there. And so I opened it. And at eye level was a brown tree snake, which today I know is, you know, it's not poisonous. But I was a city slicker. It was a tree snake. I rang the agent and said, just put the house back on the market. And of course he laughed at me and said, hey, you'll be okay. I sort of feel that the property is living with me and teaching me every day on what is actually around me. Being able to connect to the land, being able to go swimming in the dam, a spring-fed dam that, sure, the water's brown and it's muddy on the bottom, but being able to dive in there on a warm day and just feel it, being able to wander around amongst the hoop pine forests and just sit there and breathe in the air and feel what's out there. There's a healing component on the land. So living here and waking up each morning, seeing the sun come up over the ridge line that faces me, feeling the winds, the breezes come through the windows, hearing the birds, looking at the amount of wildlife that's around the place, hearing rustling down in the bushes and look down and see a little echidna, or watching the scrub turkeys building their nest, knowing that in a few weeks' time that there's going to be little furry balls of fluff coming out of there and running around. Reaching out on your balcony and picking an avocado, or wandering down amongst the fruit trees, spending time with my friends, some of them who have gone through various stages of marriage breakdowns and cancer, and feeling how invigorated they become by spending time in the space. You know, I don't actually feel, it sounds weird, but I don't feel that I'm living here. I feel that I'm actually part of everything around me. I could talk to you about trees, I could talk to you about fruit, I could talk to you about all of those things, but it's each time that I come back to this property, there's a component to it that just sort of seems to be part of me. And I can talk to you about the house, and I can, you know, talk to you about the things that have been done to it. But the overriding part of being here is being able to come back, and it probably sounds corny, but to reconnect to nature, which is a big part of what drives all of us. And I've been really fortunate to reconnect with that aspect, and feel it and see it and breathe it every day. The property has a heap of avocado trees on it, all prolifically producing, and this is one of the oldest and probably the most unusual in terms of its shape. Beautiful old tree. This tree is a custard apple tree. It's called a mammoth custard apple. They're really, really big. This tree is one of the macadamias. There's 3 or 4 different macadamia varieties on the property. You can see these ones are just starting to form. Macadamias are lovely if you throw them in a wok with a bit of sea salt. So we come back over here. The tree in front of us is a bit of a gnarly old avocado tree. This normally starts becoming a prolific producer around April. You'll see there's a lot of small abbies starting to form on it. If we come through here, it's a small veggie patch that I plant different things in season. Now on the left here is one of about 4 lychee trees. Lychees, you can see them starting to form on the tree. If you like lychees, they're so sweet. These are divine. There's another one. So these trees along here are all mango trees, and the mango trees are scattered amongst some of the hoop pines, and they're really prolific producers. So in season, apart from having a heap of mango trees here, there's a lot of them around the house as well. I hope you like mangoes. My time here has been a time of healing, but I'm excited about the new opportunities ahead. So, who do you pass something like this on to? Again, not an easy question, but if I look back at the time that I've spent here, I've been able to reconnect with things that 20 years ago I never really took much notice of. I've spoken about nature, but for me the overriding thing is that this place does have a healing nature to it. Now, I don't say that because it sort of sounds a bit funny or a bit weird, but I find whenever I have friends or visitors staying with me, dropping in, the comments that I get from them just continually reassure me of the beauty of this particular place. We're not living in the middle of a city, we're not in the middle of a high rise, we're not in the middle of suburbia. And yet, if you want to be there, you're only 10 or 15 minutes away from everything that you need. So the sort of person or people or family that I could feel okay about becoming, we could say the owner, but I don't think ownership is really what it's about. It's about becoming a custodian of everything that surrounds you here. This is a place that's not going to be bulldozed and cleared. This is a place that just enables you to just be at one with the beauty of nature and with everything that's here. For me, when I came here, I'd gone through some fairly significant business failings, and what this place taught me was that, first of all, it's not always about dollars. It's about learning to appreciate the things that are really going to feed your soul and feed your spirit. And that if you feel that you're at a stage in your life where maybe that's part of what you need, hey, even if you don't come and buy my property, just find yourself wandering in this area and hopefully you'll start getting a dose of exactly what you need. Jack Cormack, the old farmer, trusted me with his property. I think today he'd be proud of what I've created, as I've also tried to hold on to some of the thoughts and experiences that he actually instilled in me with his stories. I live in a beautiful part of the world and I've become a better person because of it. This is probably the oldest avocado tree in Currumbin Valley. Jack the farmer used to call this tree the money tree. He told me he made a lot of money from selling the avocados. But there is literally thousands starting to form on here again. You can actually see them from here. This is a sculpture that from the Swell Sculpture Festival. My dad, Albie, he used to look after draft horses for the Carlton United Brewery in Melbourne. And so this is a little memento, or for me, a bit of a memory of my dad looking after horses. As you can see, it was made out of old bits of corrugated iron and sheet steel. It's one of my favourite little bits. Back along here, the original old chook shed. Check some big chooks here. The old farmer with a bit of a gnarly old avocado tree. That's sort of taking it over. Here on the land we have an abundance of turkey tail mushrooms that have a healing property.